Have you ever had a full day of work, but at the end of the day you've not even made that much progress? This is especially painful considering that you're already putting in the time and effort, but you're just not producing that much. You know you have more to give, but it's just not happening for some reason. A study reveals that the average time people actually spend working during an 8-hour workday was 2 hours and 53 minutes. Meaning that most people spend their time working, but actually procrastinating. This also kept happening to me while working on my business, but I did my research and I figured out a few solutions which I'll share in this video. Now imagine you have a project. You want to succeed on this project. You put in your heart, your soul, your effort, your everything into succeeding in this project. But after hundreds of hours of working hard and actually pursuing what you want to pursue, you end up without any real results. You don't end up successful, you don't end up succeeding on the project, you don't end up getting the result you want. Well, this was me actually a few months ago. I spent months working on a course which I was supposed to sell. That was like my first attempt at creating a product as an entrepreneur, and that course turned out to be trash and it turned out to not be the right business model. I realized eventually that I was wasting my time and just ended the project after so much effort. But what I learned from this experience is that you need to do the key tasks which actually lead to genuine progress. That's what you need to do. If you don't do the right tasks, then none of your productivity actually matters. So the first step of actually being productive and doing a lot of work in a little space of time is actually picking the high leverage tasks. Archimedes said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum strong enough and I'll move the whole world." This basically means that if you have the right leverage, aka the right tasks that actually give you progress, that actually are closer, get you closer to your goal, you'll succeed. Most people spend their time writing emails or creating tasks that don't really progress them, like adjusting their logo or creating a strategy, or all these tasks don't actually help you. For example, if you want to do a business, if that's what you want to do, you need to get clients and serve clients. That's all you need to do. Designing the logos and things like that would be a complete distraction, but that's what a lot of people do. So the first tip to actually make the most out of each hour of your work and condense 40 hours of work in 4 hours is to pick the high leverage tasks, the tasks that actually give you the most progress. But knowing these high leverage tasks is obviously not enough. Are there actual ways you can condense a lot of work in only a few hours, even once you know the tasks? Well, of course there are. Let's talk about the second tip. And you know what? The best way to introduce this is through an analogy. Imagine, right, you're getting in a taxi. You wanna go somewhere, but you know, the taxi driver sits there and asks you, "Hello, where do you want to go?" And you sit there in the taxi and you're like, "Well, I don't know, man. I don't know where I want to go, and I don't know for how long I want to take this ride. I don't know." And so the taxi driver looks at you like you're stupid. What do you mean? You're getting in a taxi, you don't know where you want to go, you don't know how much you want to travel. That's stupid, right? And so the taxi driver grabs you by the shirt and kicks you out. He kicks you out of the car. He tells you to get out because you can't go in a taxi without knowing where you're actually going. Well, this is what you're doing right now. Right now, you're telling your brain to be productive, but without actually telling the brain how much time it needs to be productive or where you expect it to go, what it's expected to be productive towards. And of course, your brain is kicking you out by making you procrastinate. If you want to be productive to the maximum with each hour, each work session you're actually doing, you need to set a goal and you need to set a deadline. And this is true for each work session. So I'm not talking about a big overall goal or a big deadline that you have. These things are important, but this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about setting a specific goal for each work session. So if you have a 2-hour work session, you want to set a goal for that work session. Instead of telling yourself, "I'm going to create for 2 hours." This is a really bad work session. Like, that's like not giving your brain a productive destination. You want to instead tell yourself, I'm going to create this specific thing. Maybe I'm gonna write 500 words. Maybe I'm going to create a script. Maybe I'm going to create a thumbnail. Maybe I'm going to do whatever you need to do, but something very specific. So each work session you ever do needs to have a concrete and clear goal, and it also needs to have a deadline, because without a deadline you end up doing this thing where you have work, but maybe you're scrolling your computer, or you are scrolling on your phone, or you're doing something completely different. You start walking around the house, playing with the dog, eating something, just not doing the work. This is what happens when you don't have a deadline. What a deadline does, when you tell yourself that you have to write the script in 2 hours, well, now you don't have time to go pet the dog, you don't have time to walk around. And this means you actually focus during that work and you get way more done with a deadline. But if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a deadline, nothing is gonna happen. I set deadlines recently, and basically it massively improved me. You know, recently I started setting deadlines. I was doing this thing where I was productively procrastinating, but I started setting deadlines and everything changed. And then I removed the deadlines for like a few days and I was like 5 times worse. So definitely have deadlines. But none of this works if you don't actually execute on it. So why do we sometimes struggle to do the work when we know it is actually very beneficial? Well, all this will become clear to you when you answer this question. Can you eat a plane? Yes, can you eat a whole plane? If I parked a plane in front of you, would you be able to eat it? Well, this man can. Michel Lotito ate a whole plane, a Cessna 150, and it took him 2 years to do so. So he ate a plane, through his stomach, the whole parts of the plane passed and he ate the plane. I'm not kidding, this is a true story. And the way he did it is not by eating it at once. Of course, that's impossible to eat a plane at once. He ate the plane by eating small parts. So not everybody can do this, but I hope you get the point. When you're trying to tackle big tasks, big work tasks, a lot of overwhelm can happen, and this can massively slow you down. This is the best way to make yourself unproductive. Have this big project, this big task, and not have any idea where to start. The way you can prevent this is by chunking the big tasks into smaller little tasks. I literally did this yesterday with creating this video because it kind of started overwhelming me. So if you want to not be overwhelmed, just pick a task which you can do, as small as it is. So instead of telling yourself, I'm gonna create a whole ass video, which is too much, tell yourself that you're gonna write a script. And if that's too much, tell yourself you're gonna write the first 2 sentences, but set a small task in order to start. And this tip is basically backed up by science. It's called the Thezarnik Effect. And it states that our brains do not want to leave tasks unfinished, so they retain them in the memory for longer. This basically means that once you start, you get things done. The hardest part is to actually just start. And now that you have overcome overwhelm and you have something specific to work towards, another issue arises. You constantly get distracted during work. Well, this is a usual problem I see with myself and a lot of my clients. A client recently was incredibly distracted. He basically said that this was a serious issue for him. The way I helped him out is basically I told him, remove your phone, you scroll social medias, you did it last morning, you need to remove your phone, but not just during the work, you need to remove it all day, every day. So just don't scroll social media. That's what I told him. And guess what? He immediately, the next day, he started feeling better and being more productive. Just literally immediately. This happens because of dopamine. According to neuroscience, dopamine is a chemical in your brain related to motivation. Basically, it's the thing that drives you to do things. When you get hungry and you want to eat something, you get dopamine in your head and that motivates you to eat. When you want to actually do your work, that's because you have dopamine. When you don't want to do your work, it's because you lack dopamine. Dopamine is the hormone of motivation in your brain. The reason dopamine is important is because you want dopamine to be very high when you're supposed to be doing your work. Because if dopamine is low, you lack motivation and you get easily distracted and easily bored and you don't want to do the work, and so you start scrolling YouTube or you start fidgeting and doing all these other things that just distract you. The thing that destroys your dopamine is high dopamine habits. So these are super stimulating activities: video games, scrolling, watching movies, even pornography. These things, these highly stimulating activities, even junk food, gambling, all these vices, all these, I'm gonna put a list right now, but these things destroy your dopamine because they spike your dopamine up, and then what goes up must come down. So when you spike your dopamine with these habits, it goes down, and then you can't do your work. You have complete lack of motivation. So if you want to actually do solid work and be very focused and have a lot of motivation each time you sit down to work, remove all the dopamine habits from your life, the hyper-stimulating activities that I showed you, and you'll have that motivation all the time, because the most stimulating activity now will be the work. And of course, your brain will want to do it. And if you do the dopamine habits, don't do them at the start of the day. You'll literally ruin the whole day. Once you start to scroll, the day is over. If you need to overcome procrastination, join the community inside. I offer completely free coaching for 1 week in which I help people completely for free to stop procrastinating. Everybody gets results so far, which I've helped. And worst case scenario, you improve. The best case scenario, you get everything you need to solve procrastination. So click the link below and join right now. Mwah, mwah, bye.